Hey, how's it going? So today I was thinking about the idea for this video and I came up with this. So today I'm gonna go through all the camera settings that I use in my camera, and I will show you the entire settings in my menu of the camera, so you get to know which settings works best for you and why you should use the one which I use. Now your settings may differ for different purposes, but you will get to know which works the best in which case. Especially if you are a beginner, then you probably don't go through all the camera settings in your camera and you may not have the best possible workflow with your camera. So let's now jump into the menu of my camera, and I will go through all of the settings that I use in my camera for professional looking photos and videos. So let's just go into the menu. So the first thing that comes is the image quality. Now I always shoot in RAW for all the photos I take. And if you want to know more about RAW photography, if you are just a beginner with RAW photography and why you should always shoot in RAW, I have made a separate video about that. I will put in the card above, so you can always go and check it out. So you have many settings for like only JPEG, or only you want JPEG plus RAW, and you want like many compressions of JPEG are available as well. Like for JPEGs you have the large, you have medium, and so on. So usually I shoot only in RAW and not in RAW plus JPEG, because most of the times I don't need JPEG at first, because obviously the RAW photo will get converted to JPEG at the end of the day when I export it. So this is my settings for the image quality. Now for the image review, I always set it to off, because I don't want to review every image I take just after the shot has been taken, because sometimes I am in a continuous process of shooting images and I don't want to review every time. I just want to focus on the shooting process first, and then maybe I will just click this button here to review the images I have taken. So I have set it to off. Now release shutter without card is on. You can just keep it on, it's not that much important. Now lens aberration correction, everything is on in my settings, so I don't bother about this. Now flash, I don't need flash that much. I don't use flash actually for all my types of things, because I don't need it simply. So next, let's go to the second page, and for the drive mode, if you want to shoot in burst mode, then you just need to select continuous shooting. If you want a timer, then you can set the timer also from here as well. So for now I will keep it to single shooting. In the third page, we have many settings like the exposure compensation, where you can just compensate the exposure. If it's getting too much brighter, you can just make it a little darker from here. But usually I don't ever use this, because I don't know, I have never used it. Now ISO speed settings, again, you know about this, right? Like max for auto is not important, because you don't want to shoot in auto mode, right? You want to have control over everything, so you will always, like 80% 90% of the times you will shoot in manual mode, and maybe few times you can shoot in aperture priority or shutter priority depending upon the situation. Now ISO, you can just, it depends on what type of thing you are shooting. Sometimes you may have to bump up the ISO to 200 or 400 or 800 depending upon how low light the conditions are, but try to keep the base ISO of your camera settings for the best quality possible and introducing less noise into your image. Now auto lighting optimizer is currently off in my camera, and I don't bother about this so much. Now highlight tone priority is also off, Now metering mode. Now this is kind of an important thing for photography, because maximum times it's just set to evaluative metering, but sometimes I also select the center weighted average metering mode when my subject is right in the center and I wanna expose for the subject. Then sometimes I use the center weighted average, but only when the subject is in the center. Otherwise your exposure will not be correct. So 90% times it's just in the evaluative metering. And let's now go to the fourth page. Now my white balance sometimes depends on the situations, like it always depends upon the situation. Mostly it's set to 5200 Kelvin, which is the daylight, but depending upon the situation I sometimes change it, but it is very much rare. Don't set it to auto white balance, because then while shooting videos and photos, depending upon the lighting or the surrounding changes, the white balance will change automatically and your footages will have that variance thing in the white balance continuously. So don't set it to auto white balance. And in higher end cameras you will have the custom white balance as well, so you can set the exact Kelvin you want in your footage or in your photos. So in my camera I don't have that custom white balance option, so rather I have selected the 5200 Kelvin, which is a pretty decent amount of white balance for the daylight conditions for almost all types of things I shoot. And now custom white balance is just when you select a photo and then depending upon this you select a white balance. So don't bother it that much, I don't find this much helpful. Now white balance shift, and you can select, you can manually adjust the white balance of your camera if your camera is not working properly in terms of white balance, but I don't bother about it that much. So we will move into the next option. Now color space, you can set it to Adobe RGB if you really want high quality images like extreme details in the colors, but the thing is when it gets converted to sRGB, probably which you use for all types of photos in social media, then sometimes the color of it changes because it's just a different color thing. So it basically, sRGB has very much less colors than Adobe RGB. So I have set it to sRGB because most of my things I shoot in sRGB and it's kind of remains the same across all the platforms and all the devices. So yeah, but you can select it to Adobe RGB, but you have to analyze it if the color shift occurs in multiple devices or not, and depending upon it you have to change the settings. So that's it for color space. Now picture style, my picture style is set to Cine Style user defined 1. And if you know more about what is Cine Style, how did I get it, and like what is basically the thing, I've also made a separate video about this. If you really want to get that flat profile look in a camera, especially in a Canon camera, then if you don't have that log profile things like the C-Log, in budget cameras also you can get a similar looking type footage flat color profile, so that you can get a higher dynamic range than the other like neutral and faithful and standard profiles. So my picture style is set to Cine Style and I'm quite happy with it for overshooting then like 6-7 months with this picture style. Now let's move to the next page. Now long exposure noise reduction is set to off and high ISO speed noise reduction is also set to off. Now the dust delete data, you don't need this. You just set it to what it is. You don't need to check what it is. Now live view shoot, you just keep it enabled so that you can use the screen of your camera for shooting as well, rather than just using the viewfinder always. So now let's move to the 6th page, AF operation. Now this is interesting. Now this is sometimes like one shot autofocus, sometimes it's AI focus, and sometimes it's AI servo. So if your object is continuously moving in the frame, then you have to select it to AI servo, so that after you click the shutter for the first time, until you click the shutter fully to take the image, during that time if your subject changes its place, the AI servo will track that and your subject will be in focus. But if it's shot to one shot autofocus, then during that time when you click the shutter half and then you click the shutter full, during that time span if your subject moves, then your subject may be in out of focus. So I have selected AI servo. I select AI servo for most of the photos I take, but sometimes when I am shooting for like models or any type of things where I know my subject will be still, then I use one shot autofocus as well. But maximum times it's set to AI servo. Now lens electronic manual focus, don't worry about that. AF assist beam firing, also don't worry about that. Now let's move to the next. Now all the things here you can just play around with it. These are not that important. You can just rotate images, or you can just not. These are not really important. I hardly even see these settings because they are like kind of useless for me. Now here histogram display is on for my case because I want to see the histogram in the screen when I take all the photos to get my exposure correct right away in the shot. So I want to see the brightness histogram, and that is why my histogram display is set to brightness. Now let's move to the next. Now my file numbering is set to continuous, so every time I shoot, the next time it just doesn't get reset to 0 for the like image number. It just moves on and on and on, and so I have the track of how many images I'm shooting and which image is going where, so I can have the track of everything if it's continuous. So it's kind of like that. If I know my image number has suppose 5000, then I know okay, I need to go there to find the 5000 numbered images. But if it's set to 0, then I can have multiple images with the image number 0 and something. So I always set to continuous so that I can easily know where are my images, and every image number then becomes unique. Now auto rotate is on for laptop only, not for the camera, because in the camera I just wanna flip the camera in 90 degrees and see the images if it's shot in a vertical format. But for laptop it is set to rotate so that I can easily view the images in the laptop screen. Because let's be honest, you cannot rotate your laptop screen because you know that's not practical. So yeah. Now format card, you already know what it is, so I'm not talking about that. Now auto power off is set to 15 minutes, so if it's in my camera bag and all and by mistake the camera turns on, then automatically after 15 minutes my camera will shut down so that it will not lose much power. So now comes the display brightness, which is set to just the default, which is the center of the line you see. Now I sometimes bump it up when I'm in like hard sunlight and the light is very harsh and I'm not able to see the screen properly. Then maybe I will bump up a little bit to actually see the screen properly. Now these things are not that important. You can set it according to your way. And let's just move to the next thing. Now the video system. You can shoot in NTSC, you can shoot in PAL format. It just depends on you. Now for my camera settings, I set it to PAL because I don't know, but my camera, it doesn't support 24 fps in full HD. Now I don't shoot in 4K because the 4K in this camera is not that great, and kind of for the laptop I use, my workflow will just get horrible if I shoot in 4K. So I shoot in full HD, and in full HD you don't get the support of 24 fps. But if you change it to PAL format, you get the support of 25 fps. Let me just show you. So it is set to PAL, and if I now go into the video, you can see that it has 4K 25 fps, full HD 50 fps, full HD 25 fps, and so on. But now when I change it to NTSC, now you will see it has 4K 24 fps, but it does not include the 24 fps in full HD. So this is the reason I set my video system to PAL format when I'm shooting in like YouTube videos and regular type of videos. If I want to shoot in slow motion, I really want to get slow motion shots, then I just change it to NTSC, and then I can have the option to shoot in 60 fps in full HD. So this is the thing. Now touch control is standard, BP is enabled, battery info and all you can get it. We have this grid when shooting. Now this is important. I want to have that grid so that I can have a nice composition in the photos and videos. So I have set it to 3x3 plus the diagonal in the grid, so that if I need to just put something in right center, then I can easily put in the center because of this diagonal. And 3x3 grid is the basic grid system. There's like the composition rules, like the rule of thirds, which is like a very basic one. So my grid is set to this. Now all this I don't worry about this because I don't use them, and custom function I don't use. So now let's just move into the video mode and see what more settings we have. So movie recording size, I already told you about this, so it's nothing that crazy. Digital zoom is set to disable. I don't want to digitally zoom anything. Now the important thing is sound recording. You just need to have this sound recording in manual so that your sound doesn't get distorted. Now you want it to be always around -12. It shouldn't like hit 0 or anything like that. Otherwise, the moment it hits 0, your voice will just get like distorted. So you want to set it to manual so that it doesn't get above -12 decibels. You can set it from here depending upon which type of mic you are using and depending upon how close you are to the mic. So yeah. Now movie digital image stabilization is set to enhanced. No lens aberration correction. Now eye detection autofocus is enabled. And now another thing, manual focus peaking settings is on in my camera, because while shooting videos, while shooting photos, I really want to grab the focus. I just want to nail the focus if I'm shooting in manual focus or autofocus. Now autofocus, okay, it depends upon the camera, but if you're shooting in manual focus, Many a times your image, your footage will not be that sharp if you have not nailed your focus. So focus peaking is a very important tool, very important feature to have in your camera. So you can just set it to level high, and color I set it to red. So whatever thing is focus in my shot, in my footage, everything just becomes red in the screen of the camera. So I know that okay, this thing is in focus, and the parts which are not colored in red, they are like not perfectly in focus. So now moving into the next, these things are all the same, no changes whatsoever in all these settings. So I hope you liked this video, and if you did, then don't forget to hit the like button, and if you are not yet subscribed to my channel, you already know what to do. So that's it for today's video. See ya.